There's a famous Mesha Chachma at the end of PARSHA SHMOS, Perek Dalet, Pasuk Yud Ches, or Yud Tes, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe b'Midjan. God said to Moshe in Midjan, Lech Shuv Mitzrayim, go back to Egypt. Ki meso kol ha'anashim hamevakshim es nafshecha. Go back to Egypt. All the people who wanted you dead are no longer there. So Rashi writes, what does it mean? Ki meso kol ha'anashim mihem. Who are all these nashim? Who are all these anna? Who are these people? So Rashi writes, it's Dasan va'aviram. The Dasan va'aviram who were going to get Moshe in trouble, and Moshe was afraid to go back. He said, don't worry, Dasan va'aviram, well, the pasuk says Mesu, they were dead. But Rashi says, V'chayim hayu. But that's not true. We know they were alive, so why is the pasuk referred to Dasan va'aviram as Mesu? Ella sheyardu minachseim va'ani chashuv kameis. So he quotes the famous Chazal, different people are chashuv kameis. Different people are considered dead. Of course, not dead in a halachic sense that if you murder them, you're not obligated. No, they're 100% alive in that area. But as the way Rav Chaim Shmulevitz learns that all these people, what do you mean? An ani, a suma, an ani, someone who is poor, someone who is blind, someone who's a mitzora, a leper, all these things have in common. They don't have the full ability to give. They're lacking in certain areas. An ani doesn't have money where you could give more if you have. A suma is lacking because they can't see, and hence they can't do a lot of things. And a mitzora is chutz machana. So that's what it means, ani chashuv kameis. So really, Dasan v'aviram, the troublemakers were alive, but they're inconsequential. They're on aniyim now, and they're not going to play a role when you come back. So God tells Moshe, go to Mitzrayim. It's safe now because everyone who wants you dead is no longer there. And in fact, as the Ramban adds, that when he heard this, he even took his wife and kids. It's the pasuk says, "Vikach Moshe's ishto ve'ezbanav," in order to show that the Jewish people, that look how much confidence Moshe has. Not only am I bringing myself, if I bring my wife and children, that shows I'm not worried anymore. So that's the pasuk. So the Meshach Chachma says, we learn out from this pasuk a tremendous yisod, it's tremendous chiddush, that we see that what was the case? Moshe Rabbeinu was the potential person to save the Jewish people. All the Jewish people, or most of the Jewish people, were stuck in Egypt, and yet Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid to go, afraid to put his life in danger because Dasan v'Aviram were around, until God said, don't worry. So the Meshach Chachma, we see from this pasuk in Chumash, that one is not allowed to risk one's own life even to save Klal Yisrael. We'll get into the question of saving your life to saving an individual, but we see from this Meshach Chachma, even to save Klal Yisrael, we see one is not obligated to risk one's life. And in fact, the Meshach Chachma is also the Or Sameach. The Or Sameach makes the same comment based on the Mishnah in Makkos. There's a Mishnah in Makkos, and Daf Yud Aleph Amid Beis 11b, the Mishnah talks about, when the Torah tells us that someone who kills b'shogeg, an inadvertent killer, must remain in Golus until after the Kohen Gadol passes away. So the Mishnah derives from a pasuk that this person who is in the Ari Miklat, in the city of refuge in Golus, she can't even leave for the most urgent reason, even the most important one. What's an example the Mishnah gives? The Mishnah says, even if the person's a general in the war, and they need the general, even then, I think Yoav and Surya, like to give an example like Yoav, even then, he's not allowed to leave. And the Rambam, when he codifies this halacha, adds that if the exile killer ignores the halacha and leaves the confines of the Arei Miklat, the Gol Hadam, the revenger of blood, is permitted to take his life. That's what the Rambam meant. That the Gol Hadam, once he leaves, then it's open season. So comes along the Or Sameach, who is the Meshach Chachma. In fact, that's the story they say. I think the Meshach Chachma was going to print his sefer. He's working on the Meshach Chachma, which is a profound sefer on Chumash, and he was working on the Or Sameach, which is a sefer on the Rambam, on Maimonides. So I guess he was in the middle of working both. He was finishing both, and he was going to print the Meshach Chachma first. So his father-in-law told him, "Don't make sure you do the Or Sameach first." He said, because if you print the Meshach Chachma, a sefer on Chumash, he's a big darshan, he doesn't really know anything. But if you first to print the Or Sameach, what a gon olam, and then the Meshach Chachma, and then the wall of the Meshach Chachma. I'm not sure. I assume he listened to his father-in-law, but I'm not sure. Whether he did or didn't, the Meshach Chachma is a well-known sefer. They're both a very an excellent sefer on Chumash, and the Or Sameach is an excellent sefer on the Rambam. So the Or Sameach points out, we see from the concluding statement of the Rambam, what's the reason why the Gol Adam, in other words, why can't the Gol Adam leave? Because the question is, like, what do you mean? It's Pikuach Nefesh. We know, save the big three, that for three things a Jew has a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, to sanctify their life. If someone puts a gun to your head and says worship idols, someone puts a gun to you and says murder someone else, or someone puts a gun to you and says commit adultery, illicit relations, so then you have a mitzvah to give up your life al Kiddush Hashem. But bar the big three, the rule of thumb is the 610. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael Shabbos, the Gemara learns that in Yuma based on the Psukim, that even Shabbos, which is even compared, someone who desecrates the Shabbos is compared to an idol worshiper, because by resting on the Shabbos you give testimony God created the world on 6 days, rested on the 7th. Even though the Gemara says Ki'ilu Olei Avodah Zarah, I might think that maybe for Shabbos you have to give up your life. No, the Gemara tells us better to machalo Shabbos achas, better to violate Shabbos once and save your life or save someone else's life, kadei sheyishma Shabbos harbe, in order that you'll be able to fulfill many more. And we even pass it even for Chayesha, even if you're going to die in a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes, it still warrants Chilul Shabbos. Based on Gemara and Yuma. So the Or Sameach is bothered with the Mishnah. It's true there's an Isser for a Gol Adam to leave the Arei Miklat, but here the mitzvah of saving lives, saving Chayesha, supersedes it. Yet the Mishnah says no. So what is based on? So the Or Sameach says it's based on this issue that we said if the person leaves the Arei Miklat, he's putting his life in danger. The Gol Adam can kill him. So we see from here, the Meshach Chachma says, and the Or Sameach, that one is not obligated to risk one's life to save someone else. And the Meshach Chachma is saying even if to save the Rabbim, even to save many people. So that's the Meshach Chachma and the Or Zarua. The Aruch HaShulchan suggests a different reason, that it's not a fundamental issue, that really it's not the issue what the Or Sameach says. The Or Sameach also suggests maybe it's the safety of the Kohen Gadol, that he'll come back and he'll make plans to kill the Kohen Gadol. But the Aruch HaShulchan writes, he says more of a hashkafic reason, that the fact that he killed someone b'shogeg unintentionally, that nothing happens by mistake, and therefore an exile murderer is not granted permission to leave the city of refuge to participate in a life-saving mission, because we doubt that he might have the necessary merits to be successful in this mission. So, whatever that means, that's already getting more into hashkafa on that, but according to Aruch HaShulchan, it has nothing to do with this question of putting one's life in danger, but according to Aruch HaShulchan, that wouldn't be the issue. Maybe it's a special case by Arei Miklat. You can, in fact, that's how some say, that It's a special Xeris Akasa. Sham Tia Kvuraskam, you have to do everything that you can ever leave. Nothing to do with the Ar Sameach. But so the Ar Sameach and the Meshach Chochmah touch on a fundamental question. Does one have to risk one's life, to risk your own life to save someone else? So it's a famous Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi writes that it's a discussion exactly which Yerushalmi it is, where it is, but the standard understanding is this Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says that Rav Ami was taken captive, and the hostages basically weren't going to give him back. The kidnappers weren't giving back the hostage, and if you didn't go get him, he was going to be killed. So Rav Yonason said, let's bring out the tachrichim. Let's bring out the shrouds. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't go in. If we go in, we're going to get killed. That's it. It's an unfortunate situation that we just going to have to bury him after. And Rav Shimon ben Lakish, who in his former life was a bank robber and thief, what are you talking about? I'm going to take out my machine gun, I'm going to take out my sword and knife, and either we're both going to come out alive or we're both going to come out dead. So we see from the Yerushalmi, at least according to Rav Yochanan, that we see one is not obligated to risk one's life to save someone else. So that's the question. So how serious do we take this Yerushalmi? So some want to say perhaps that we see, well, who says we passing like Rav Yochanan? Maybe we passing like Rav Shimon ben Lakish, and therefore you would be obligated. Rav Moshe has a tshuva. He talks about that we see from here that maybe it's a minhag chasidus to do. It's an act of piety, but you're not obligated to go ahead and do it. It doesn't teach me an obligation. And others, the Sefer Hasidim write that maybe this case it was different. Ami Ravimi is a Talmud Chacham. A big Torah scholar has the status of a rabbim of many, and therefore maybe to risk one's life to save many, that you're obligated to, but to risk life to save one person, there is no obligation. So the Yerushalmi isn't ironclad. People discuss whether the Yerushalmis are proof on that, but many quote this Yerushalmi, and in fact that's at the Beis Yosef, at the end of Choshen Mishpat, the Beis Yosef quotes it, the Kesef Mishnah, that this Yerushalmi, that one is obligated to risk one's life to save someone else. Because borrowing a phrase from Dini Mamanos, Ein Safik Motzi Midei Vadai. That if you have a doubt in front of you and you have a definite in front of you, you go with the definite. In other words, if you don't do anything, he's definitely going to die. And you're only a Safik Sakana, so the Yerushalmi says one is obligated to risk one's own life to save someone else. So let's assume the Yerushalmi does say, which is questionable, if we assume that's the way but even if the Yerushalmi says it as a halacha for everyone, do we paskin like the Yerushalmi? So we don't categorically reject Yerushalmis. We try to see if we can find a Bavli that says differently or the same. So if we can find the Bavli against the Yerushalmi, then we usually go with the Bavli. But if we can't find the Bavli, so we go with the Yerushalmi. So the different Achronim bring different Gemaras to try to show the Bavli is cholek under Yerushalmi. So the Bavli, one of the Gemaras they bring down is the Gemara in Nida. I think it's Rabbi Tarfon, that someone was coming to, there was a call out. But first the Gemara over there talks about you shouldn't listen, you shouldn't accept Lashon Hara, but you shouldn't be naive, because we're ready for Asara B'Tev. It's Tzom Gedaliah. So Gedaliah was killed. So if there's a rumor that the person behind the cash register is a thief, not that you should fire the person, but don't be an ostrich. Don't put your head in the sand. You have to check it out. So the Rav Tarfon, two people, there was a call came out that these people were murderers, and they came to Rabbi Tarfon and they said, "Please hide us." So Rav Tarfon says again different ways. Rashi and Tosafos that you learn the Gemara, but basically, what Rav Tarfon was saying, Tarfon said is that basically no. Like, what do you need me for? Go find your own hiding spot. Like, the Rav Tarfon didn't want to do it. So someone would say, why didn't Rav Tarfon want to do it? Because he knew by taking them in, he'd be putting his own life and his family's life at his risk, and he felt one is not obligated to risk one's life to save someone else and to risk his family. Others say it's not a proof. Maybe that's not why. Maybe you are obligated. But the reason why he said he didn't want to do it is because maybe these people deserve death. In other words, he didn't want to go ahead of people warrant or penalty of being caught, so maybe he felt they deserved it. So either way, from that Gemara, it needs that someone to bring a raya to say you could dingsach with it. Another Gemara in Sanhedrin, the Gemara quotes two psukim about lo saman adam reyecha, don't stand by idly. You have to help someone else out, and v'hashiva salo from the mitzvah of Shavas Aveda is the mitzvah also to returning a lost soul. So the Gemara says we need both psukim. That we need the pasuk that even to spend money, you have to go out and save someone's life. So they point out that the Minchas Chinuch, why didn't the Gemara say a bigger chiddush? That one has to risk one's own life to save someone else. The fact the Gemara did not say that, the Minchas Chinuch concludes that the Gemara is against the Yerushalmi. So perhaps this is a Gemara that we don't have to risk one's life. And there's another Gemara, famous Gemara in Baba Metzia, where two people stuck in the desert, there's only one jug of water, what to do? So they point out that, Rabbi Akiva says, Chayecha Kodmin, and Rabbi Ben Petura says, no, how could I see my friend lying there better that we both died than to watch your friend die? So what exactly does it mean? Ben Petura is actually saying better two deaths than one? No. So the others explained that no, it wasn't a definite case where you're going to die. Right now you don't have water, but maybe over the next 2 days the search committee will find you. The search mission will find you. So they point out that when the Gemara, so really Rabbi Akiva agrees with the logic that better to risk one's life, but Chayecha Kolman, according from the pasuk, v'chayechicha imak, my life takes precedence. But if not, it makes sense that one should risk one's life. So, but we see from the psukim, so it comes out, it's a machokas Yerushalmi and Bavli. We pass in like the Bavli, that one is not obligated to, the Yerushalmi says, one is obligated to risk one's life to save someone else. Yerushalmi says one is obligated to risk one's life. In fact, even though it's quoted in the Beis Yosef, but the Rav Yosef Cairo doesn't quote it. So that's a discussion. What if you want to understand what the Rav Yosef Cairo is saying? Should you go to the Beis Yosef? Should you go to the Mechaber? That's a discussion. But the Beis Yosef himself tells us he wrote the Mechaber, the Shulchan Aruch, because the Beis Yosef is for the Talmidei Chachamim who want to review it every year, so therefore it's too long, the Beis Yosef, or it's for kids to learn the Shulchan Aruch, it's too hard. So we see really that the Iker seems to be like the Beis Yosef. Either way, none of the posts can bring it down, and we assume like the Bavli, one is not obligated. However, as the posts can say, but you shouldn't go overboard thinking how you should never save someone, and it gets into the risk-reward, and perhaps you're not obligated to, as Rav Moshe says, it'll be a minute midas chasidus, an act of piety to go ahead and do it. So this is all one-on-one. What about saving a rabbim? So even though the Meshach Chachma, and the Or Sameach, right, even to save Chai Yisrael, no, we don't assume that way. We assume that even though you don't have to risk your life to save an individual, but to save Chai Yisrael, we see like Esther, to save the rabbim, there are more people on the side of risking oneself to save the rabbim, and certainly to save Chai Yisrael, those say that one should put themselves in the risk. So even though it's an interesting pasuk, and so what do we do with the pasuk in Chumash that God said to Moshe, "B'midjan lech shuv Mitzrayim ki meisu kol anashim avakshim es nafshecha." The pasuk says now you could go because your life is in danger. So the Mario distance is where you read the pasuk before. Vayelach Moshe and he returned to Yisro, his father-in-law, and he told him already he was going back. So no, so the pasuk before already tells us Moshe was going back anyway. He was just having the God just told him to go back now, but not that it wasn't dependent on the danger. So it's a beautiful Meshach Chachma and Or Sameach and the Gemara Makis about risking one's life to save someone else, that not risking one's life even to save Chai Yisrael, but we don't paskin, we paskin that one has